Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Questback webinar for this afternoon, which is around managing teams effectively during COVID-19. And I'm joined today by our Head of Leadership and Engagement, Kate Pritchard from the UK. Hi, Kate.
Hello. Great to be here.
Looks like you're working from home, right?
Oh, I certainly am. Yes, in the spare room with children downstairs who've promised to be quiet. So fingers crossed.
Fantastic. And I am Luke Talbot, VP of Product Marketing here at Questback, also in the UK and also working from home. This isn't my library, this is just my home office. It makes it look like I'm working in a castle, but I'm definitely not, I assure you. Actually, just as part of the topic of today's webinar, where we will be talking about managing teams during this rather sort of crazy situation that everyone is now finding themselves in. Kate and I thought it would be quite a nice idea to find out where you all are. And we don't actually mean what country you're in. We'd like to know actually, literally, physically, where are you? So I'm going to launch a quick poll now. And we've got quite a lot of people who've already joined the webinar. So welcome to you all. And just to start things off, it would be nice to see exactly where you are actually joining from. And so the questions we're asking here is, where are you joining us from? My bedroom at home, my kitchen, my living room or sofa, my home office, or my employer's residence? And Kate, I'm going to ask you, what do you think the majority of people are going to be saying? Oh, we can't hear you, Kate.
Yes, I'm pondering. I reckon probably home office wins, but I imagine there's a fair number also in their living rooms. That'd be my top two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's a pretty good guess. We're going to give people a couple of seconds still to answer. We've actually got 89% of people have voted. That's an amazing response rate. So we're actually going to close the poll now. I'm going to share the results. So you'll all be able to now see the results here. And yeah, I mean, exactly what you said. There is a vast majority here joining from the home office and the living room or sofa, and quite a lot of people joining from bedrooms and kitchens, which is good to see. Nobody joining from employers' premises, which I have to say, actually, I'm quite happy about. That means that we're all practicing this social distancing, right? So we're going to go into, let me just quickly do this. So I have to learn how to hide the results as well. Excellent. So you should be able to see my slides again now. And Kate and I are actually going to turn our webcams off now because we are both working from home. I personally have an entire family here, including children who I'm supposed to be homeschooling them, but I have to say they're actually being self-schooled at the moment. I am ignoring them entirely while I do this webinar. So I'm going to hide my webcam, and Kate, I imagine you'll do the same.
Okay. Yeah.
There we go. So on the agenda today, we're going to look at 5 fundamentals for managing teams during COVID-19. So Kate will share some good advice there and some good tips on the important things that you need. We'll then actually look at how Questback is helping people helping organizations to collect feedback from employees to help to improve how you, not just how you manage your team, but also how you are managing things like communication and your response to COVID-19, and also how you are helping people with health and well-being and things like that while they're working remotely, and also for those key essential workers who can't. And we'll look at some key insights from our research to date over the last 2 to 3 weeks into that. And we'll end off with the importance of regular feedback. So how important it is to get insights from your employees much more regularly than just every month or every 2 months. And we'll show you how you can do that using some of the tools here at Questback that we are providing completely free of charge also during the COVID-19 pandemic. But just before we go on, I just wanted to give a quick introduction to Questback as a company. A lot of you may know us, some of you may not, and may have just stumbled upon us as part of our invitation to this webinar maybe, or you've found us on social media because we are helping people with our new QB offering as part of the COVID-19 response that we have. Questback is a software company. We make software for experience management, so employee experience management, customer experience management. And one of the things that really drives us as an organization is the fact that actually extraordinary experiences are built by people inside the company who, so your employees, and they will help drive extraordinary innovations. And that is the driving force behind your company. That's what's going to help you to develop extraordinary customer experiences as well. And what we've been trying to do for a few years, and what we do for a lot of our customers, is to try to move away from this world where feedback is just something that you get once a year with your annual engagement survey, maybe something that's controlled by a central part of your organization, to something where everyone in the company can start to use feedback to make better decisions through more rich and connected feedback and operational data. So trying to make that accessible to everybody, something we call democratizing feedback. But I won't go too much into that. Let's go into Kate Pritchard's 5 fundamentals for effective working during COVID-19.
Lovely, thank you, Luke. So yes, we want to start today's webinar by providing you with some practical tips for managing teams effectively at the current time. It's obviously an unprecedented time and everyone's on their own unique journey, but our experience of work is of course having a large impact on how we're feeling and our outlook for the future. So what can you do to ensure that your employees are having the best experience possible during this very difficult time? So let's move to the first of these 5 fundamentals. We feel it's essential to go back to basics and just to remember that we're all individuals struggling with our own personal worries and anxieties at the moment, whether that be for sick and elderly parents, having young children at home, our personal fears, or perhaps just not having anywhere convenient to work at home. So compassion and care must come first. And at the end of the day, remember that everybody's health, safety and well-being is of course the most important thing. So make time to check in with your team to understand how they're coping and how you can best support them. For the second of these 5 fundamentals, we feel it's so important to accept flexibility at the moment. It is unrealistic for parents of small children to have an uninterrupted day at work. So think about what flexibility you can offer. Employees are balancing their work with personal commitments more than ever. So offer them the flexibility to work at slightly different times to enable them to manage these other responsibilities, as long as it's still possible to get their work done. We know that community is more important than ever during this time, that many people are taking responsibility for neighbours or of signing up to help in the community, perhaps in the NHS in the UK. And we need to balance these important positive actions with helping employees to keep on top of their workload. So at Questback, many of us are actually working pretty unusual hours at the moment, either each day or just the right number of hours across a week. And of course, what's important is that we're judging our employees on their outputs rather than their hours.
Yeah, and this slide actually, just the image you've used here, Kate, it's bringing back horrific memories of the week before, when Questback does yoga sessions in our German office, and they do this on a Thursday afternoon, and now they're doing those via Microsoft Teams, and so the entire company can join into yoga. And I tried to join in, and I have to say, when it got to a pose a bit like this, actually, I think it was quite advanced for me, and I almost slipped a disc and broke my neck. So yeah, maybe not that flexible.
Yeah, but I think at times like this, we're all trying Zoom yoga for the first time, and yeah, who knows what new skills we'll acquire, hey? Okay, so the third of the priorities is to clarify goals and priorities with people. So for many businesses, priorities have had to swiftly change, and it's important that all employees know how they should be spending their time on a day-to-day basis, particularly as they're now working more independently than ever. It's important to restate to people what's important, both to the company and to each individual, to ensure that everyone's focused on the right things. Remember that as a line manager, you're the conduit for explaining company strategy and communications from the top. So make sure you are spending time providing frequent updates on company progress and priorities, and obviously inviting questions and discussion as well. and focus on the medium as well as the short term. While everybody's obviously worried about the spread of COVID-19, there are more concerns about people's jobs and income in the longer term as well. And while it's very hard to provide certainty, you do need to be able to balance honesty with reassurance, empathy, and understanding at the moment. The fourth area is around staying connected, and this is so important. As managers, we really need to make sure that we're staying connected with each other. It can be really isolating working at home, particularly those who are already living at home. So make sure that there are regular catch-ups scheduled, ideally where everyone in the team can see each other and everyone can participate in group chats and group meetings. I'm noticing that many organisations are now doing daily team catch-ups, which is great, and encouraging things like virtual informal coffee breaks or virtual lunches where work chat is actually off limits. So this one-to-one FaceTime is really important. Perhaps it's worth also thinking about implementing some sort of informal buddy system within an organisation. While in a lot of organisations people are very close in their groups, there might be individuals who don't have those close connections at work. And it's important that everybody feels that they've got somebody to talk to about how they're feeling and the challenges that they're facing. It's also worth remembering that more junior employees, or those that are really new to the organisation, will require the support that you would expect. For seasoned employees, it's obviously much easier to adapt to these new circumstances. And then my final fundamental is to seek regular feedback, as Luke's already mentioned. So we need to make sure that we're continuing to improve the way that we all work as remote teams. So really find out what people's concerns are and how you can best address them. A regular pulse survey can really help you to understand what the key issues are and to drive actions. And at Questback, we're obviously very aware of the value of regular check-ins, but we also recognise that during this time, a specific survey would be useful to really help organisations to navigate the current environment. So what we've done is we've launched some free surveys specifically to help you to get feedback from employees in the current environment. And I'll hand back to Luke to tell you more about this.
Thanks very much, Kate. And those 5 things I think are very, very key, certainly to how I'm trying to work with my team at the moment. But it is a struggle. I mean, my team almost in its entirety are habitual home workers. So you'd think to yourself, well, this isn't going to be too much of a challenge, is it? This is what I've been preparing my whole life for. But actually, it is, because then you find yourself at home, not just in your home office where you normally are, but next to your entire family who are also being put into that situation too, now that the schools are closed and everybody's working from home. So it is, especially the flexibility around changing working hours, and something that I've tried to start putting in place as well, is making gaps in the day. So it's not a 9 to 5 anymore, because so that I can actually go and literally speak to the children, make sure they're doing the right things, etc. So these really are extraordinary times, and so they call for extraordinary measures. And it's not just in our working practices. What we as Questback decided to do 3 weeks ago is we know that feedback and regular feedback can really help. And so we decided to take one of our best offerings, which is QB, and make it entirely free for the duration of this, and also add quite a lot of content to it, and make it much more easy to access, so that people could actually start to do that. We really wanted to empower people all around the world to do what we do day in, day out. Actually, at Questback, we're quite used to it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do another quick poll, where we're going to ask you a question. But before I do that, I should have said something at the very beginning and I failed to. But you can ask questions anytime during this webinar. There should be 2 controls in there where you can say things in the chat, and you can also you can actually pop questions into the questions. And what we'll do is, if you we can stop at any time to answer questions if relevant, or we can save them until the end. But please do ask us questions if you have any. And there are contact details for both Kate and me at the end, so you can get hold of us that way too. But let's go to our second poll of the day, which is you know, at this time when everybody is now being told to either go home or you're an essential worker and you need to stay at work, how do you feel? And let me just actually need to get to the right screen. Okay, and the question is, how are you feeling about your ability to manage people at this time? And your three possible answers are very confident, okay, and I could do with some help. And Kate, as usual, I'm going to actually ask you what you think the highest response is going to be.
I would go for okay. I imagine there's quite a few that could do with some help, given that they're on this webinar today. But I'd say okay is perhaps the top one, but we'll see.
That's a nice safe bet. You're kind of hedging there in the middle. So I mean, I would be amazed if everybody is very confident. Like I said, I work from home, and so do most of my team, and I'm certainly not very confident. So and I expect some people do really need some help as well. Okay, so we have had one question, which is, can we have a quick review of the first two of the 5 things that were mentioned earlier? So while we just close out this quick poll, Kate, could you just summarize what the 5 things are very quickly? Just a quick rundown, 5 through to 1.
Yes, of course I can. So I mentioned 5 fundamentals. The first is really to remember that the most important thing we can do is to provide care to our employees, to make sure that we're caring for them as humans first, that we accept that flexibility is needed during these times when it's impossible with other distractions going on to work 9 to 5 in many cases, to make sure that we are able to clarify goals and priorities very quickly and very regularly with employees, because everything's changing quite fast, making sure that we're staying connected and really keeping that human connection going, both as line managers with our people, but also encouraging co-workers to have face time as and when they can. And then the 5th one was seeking regular feedback.
Fantastic. And whilst they're in no particular order, I do feel like we did a bit of the top of the pops, top 5 there for the UK, which is great. The recording for this entire webinar will also be made available, and you will get that again. So if you want to hear the whole of that section of this webinar, then of course you can. So I'm going to close the quick poll now. Slightly lower response rate this time, I have to say, but you should be able to see on screen how those panned out. So you can see that 70% said they were okay with how they felt about their ability to manage their teams effectively now, with 22% saying very confident and 9% saying I could do with some help. So actually quite close to what you were saying there, Kate, which is interesting. So, and one of the reasons why we did that quick poll now is because the tool that I'm about to show you in this quick webinar is hopefully going to help you with that. So I'll quickly go into it here. Right. I'm actually at the login screen for QB. If you want to get to QB yourself, then go to www.qb.app. There will be a link at the end of the webinar as well. And if you don't have an account already, many of you that I've seen on the webinar have already signed up, but many of you also haven't. If you haven't signed up yet, then you can go to create your account, and you can get full access to QB, like I said, completely free. I've already got a user. It's Clive Cussler at mailinator.com. It's not the same Clive Cussler, I assure you, so no copyright has been infringed at this stage. And when you first log in, you'll see that you have a series of what we call experience apps that we've made available as part of QB to help out during this situation. And the kind of content that you'll be looking at here are, there's a survey here for effective working during the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. We have another one which we just launched this week, which is working safely for key and essential workers during COVID-19. Not everybody has the luxury of being able to completely self-isolate and work from home, and they have to put themselves in actually in some cases quite significant danger every single day. So actually finding out how they feel and the sorts of challenges they have is really important. We have one survey for health and well-being for remote workers. As we saw at the first quick poll of the webinar, that is everybody who's on the webinar, which is great. And this will look at things like, you know, do you have the right kind of equipment and support from the organization? Are you actually able to deliver good customer service from where you are? Those sorts of things. And we have some other content in here, so you can boost your team's performance and productivity with a team performance survey. We have a Leadership 360 here. You can get access to our Leadership 360 tool. So if you are a leader and you want to do a quick 360, then you can. What we finally have here is an ideation guide, which we'll talk a little bit more at the end of the webinar. We are adding more content all of the time. The next content pack that's going to be added to here is a meeting effectiveness content pack, which will actually help you to make sure you're running the best, most efficient meetings and getting the most out of everybody's time. Now, like I said, we've worked hard to try to make these as accessible to everybody. So when you first log in, all you need to do is go to Start. And after a quick rundown of exactly what's going to happen next, you can go in here. You can see all of the questions that are going to be asked. So about communications and working practices, working environment, care. There are also 2 open-ended questions in this particular survey, and there's an additional survey question set here for health and safety precautions, which I can switch on and off if I want to. When I click next, I'll be able to invite people from my organization. Now, if you're just starting out and you're using this for the first ever time, then you won't have anybody in here. You'll have to add them all by email address. If you have already used this, then you'll have teams that you can add immediately just by clicking, or you can add your entire company. And in here, so for instance, if I wanted to add Dave at, let's see, Dave.Cussler, he's Clive's brother, at mailinator.com. And in here, I can just add him. What I could also do, because that could be quite tedious, and when we first launched this 3 weeks ago, some of the first feedback we had is, I've got 400 people that I want to send this out to. Please, can I do that much more easily? And so we've implemented this feature already, where I can just quickly grab in emails. I could copy and paste these in from Outlook as well. I could just grab as many emails as I want here and post them in here and just add them. So I can add, in this case, 338 people in one go. And the limit to actually per survey is 500. So once I've done that, I'm going to give this a new name. So webinar team, I'm going to call this one. And then the next step will simply be to add a personal message to your email. Hi, everyone. Oops, don't know why I did that. Must have pressed the wrong button. Ah, that's a great shame. Okay, so let's go back into this. There we are. So, hi, everyone. Can you please answer the survey? Awesome. And hit confirm and send. That's going to go off. It's sending those 338 surveys out to all of those people, and they will get that survey invitation, and we'll get the responses very soon. I can do this with as many teams as I want. I can do it across all of the different surveys that are available, and I'm in full control of the process as well. So I can send reminders. Reminders will be automated as well, but I can send reminders of my own accord. I can extend the survey wave. So if actually it's going to last 6 days, but if I feel that people need a bit more time, then I can do that. And then what I can also do is I can add people I may have forgotten. So once I've sent this out, I can, if I remember that I need to add a couple of people, or a couple of people have just joined the team, then I can add them into this survey before it ends as well. It's taking a little while because I added so many people into the wave, but that'll end any second now. There are a couple of questions here. What if you have over 500 employees? That's a really good question. So if you do have over 500 employees and you want to send out the survey to them, then you can get in touch with us. There are things that we can do to give you a slightly more customized version. Or alternatively, you can just run multiple waves. And what a lot of customers of ours are doing at the moment is they're segmenting into the logical areas for their business. So UK office, New York, those sorts of things, and different business functions, which is fairly straightforward and easy to do. So yeah, that's what a lot of people are doing. So you can see here the survey is now there. Right, finally, I'll show you what the results look like. So I'll go into this survey here. Here's one I made earlier, and I can go into the results for this particular survey, and view them straight away. So I've jumped a couple of steps, obviously, there with all my respondents responding and etc. The responses are very clearly laid out here. I've got all of the different questions here for working environment. Here are my health and safety questions that we added. So am I able to stay 2 meters apart from my colleagues? At work, I have access to masks and gloves. At work, I have easy access to hand soap or sanitizer, etc. I can split the results by location, by area of work, and this will give me a very quick heat map so I can identify potential problem areas. So health and safety precautions seem absolutely fine in IT, but in services, not so much. So it'll give me a good idea of what I might need to do. And in here, we have the open text comments here, and I can see here, so what people have been asking, you know, more sleep, more staff, etc. There's no changing room, so when we go home in the same clothes we worked in all day, can we have a temporary shelter put up? Actually, I think that's a really good idea. So why don't I click on that? I can add it to my action board. I can share this with the team or with some executives who are also using QB, and this will add it to a very quick Trello style board where I can go in and start to manage those actions here. So I can see this is the action that we added, and we can work on that and collaborate as a team. All of this obviously included when you register for QB. Right, I'll go back to the presentation now. We will go back into a little bit of a demo in a moment, but right now I'm going to hand back over to Kate. We've been running this now for just under 3 weeks, so it's about 2.5 weeks, and we've already got quite a lot of people using it. And Kate, what are the emerging findings?
Yeah, thank you, Luke. So we thought it was worth sharing some of the key findings that we've had to date. And it is encouraging to see that there are some really high positive scores. So there seem to be high levels of satisfaction with company communications in many organisations, and also a real feel of care from the leadership team. So that's excellent, and kudos to all the organisations who are doing so well here. Perceptions of support and collaboration are also really strong. People know what's expected of them, even in this difficult time. They feel that they've got sufficient opportunities to be connected and that they can access the support they need. So that's all really good. But there are some less positive findings, and we thought that by sharing these themes, it might give you a pointer of areas where you may need to focus. So what we're seeing is that in spite of the support that employers are providing, there are still some employees who are struggling to maintain a healthy work-life balance at the moment. So this is definitely worthy of a conversation within your team, and perhaps considering the extent of flexibility that you're able to offer. We are seeing comments from employees feeling unsure of how much flexibility they are allowed at the moment, and feeling that actually working uninterrupted 9 to 5 is completely unrealistic with young children. And because you are being interrupted regularly in many cases, this is leading to people working into very late times in the evening, which is obviously detrimental to health and well-being. So this is definitely something that's worth keep checking in on. It's also worthy of increased communication around well-being benefits that employees have access to. There does seem to be a little bit of a lack of clarity around this. So, for example, if employees are able to access an employee assistance scheme, make sure that they're aware of that. If there was a corporate gym membership and now this has moved to some exercise classes online via Zoom or something, let people know. And even if these types of things don't exist formally within your organisation, at this time, there is a real hunger for information and sharing amongst employees. So we're finding that employees are really keen to share wellbeing wins and tips, things like healthy recipes, fitness goals, ideas for mindfulness and self-care. Anything that you can do to start an informal conversation about these things would be really appreciated. We're also seeing that some employees are struggling to have the right equipment to work effectively at home. So, you know, being hunched over on a laptop on the kitchen table isn't ideal. If there are company funds to enable employees to buy small things that would make a big difference, headphones for calls, etc., then worth communicating that. It's also worthy of a look about employees being feeling that they aren't sure whether they can deliver a great customer service at the moment. This is clearly an area that is a big challenge. This was one of the lowest scores from the survey, that people are worried that they're not able to give a good customer service at their time. And it may well be that customer service looks a little different just now. So help employees to navigate this, and also think about the communications that you as a company are giving out to manage customer expectations during this time. And then there are particular areas of employees that it's worth giving particular attention to. So line managers being the first of these. We're finding that they are less positive than other staff members in some areas, struggling to support their team and manage their own time effectively. So they're more likely to feel that they can't manage their time and that they've got less support than other members of employees. Also, there are some employees that are less familiar with home working. So particular functions like operations and customer service are perhaps less likely to have worked from home regularly. So think about giving them additional support. And also those functions that have been really critical to managing the changes, such as HR and IT. We're finding that they're struggling more than others to manage the balance between their work and home life. So absolutely worth focusing more on these particular groups.
Yeah, and just before we move on to the next slide there, Kate, a couple of questions have come in, and both centering more or less around the same thing. It's like, so why is this now so challenging for people who are used to working remotely? So I think one of the questions is worded precisely, so what is so different today, you know, for the people who've been working remotely for some time? And I mean, I can give some opinions from my side, but then Kate, maybe you can give some thoughts of this as well. And like I said, I mean, my team and I work remotely all the time, and we kind of split that between being in the office and not being in the office. And I think there are a couple of factors. One is to do with just the equipment and infrastructure. Certainly, I think actually in the entire world, isn't designed to have so many people working from home, and that's leading to some really challenging situations. I know that in my own home, for instance, the equipment, the Wi-Fi router simply wasn't built to cope with so many people connecting at the same time. And I have 2 children who are doing Microsoft Teams classes while my wife is doing conference calls, and I'm also doing conference calls. And so actually this can lead to huge amounts of frustration. It can lead to not being as effective as you were, but also just significant periods of isolation. You know, it's very different when you can go to the office, or you can just go out and do whatever you want. You can kind of break up your day much more naturally. And so I think it would be wrong to just assume that if people work from home, this is business as usual. In fact, anecdotally, I did hear from somebody who said that's exactly what the boss said. They said, hey guys, we always work from home, so business as usual, just keep going. And it's just not like that. And that was very, very poorly received by pretty much everyone, because it's not business as usual, because they don't usually have a house full of people and, you know, not the ability to go out and do what they want. So I think that's certainly from my point of view, I think we need to be much more conscious of those challenges. But Kate, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've covered it pretty well, actually, Luke. But I suppose from my side, when this all started for us personally at Questback, for the first few days, it was almost a precautionary measure to work at home, and it was very much life as normal. And then the schools close and nothing is normal. You know, as you say, when you're all in the house at the same time, all trying to work around each other. I mean, how many working areas do most houses have? It is a real challenge, and just simple things like we've run out of paper for our printer. So simple practical things that are very difficult to manage at the current times. And it's just being conscious of the struggles that many people are having with coping with this new way of working.
I'm also hearing that somebody has lost sound. So I don't know if someone else wants to pop in there if you can hear, just in the chat or in the questions. That would help, but I'm assuming we haven't lost sound generally, otherwise we probably have a few more complaints. So fingers crossed everything's okay. But Kate, yeah, back to you.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Luke. So yes, I mean, we're really delighted that these surveys have been used by so many of our clients now, and that they are providing really useful information to help them support their employees during these times. And we really encourage you to take a look at them if you haven't already. But we also wanted to let you know that if you do sign up for these surveys, that you also have an opportunity, if it's of interest, to trial our weekly vibe surveys. So this is also a QB offer, and we'd like to tell you a bit more about this now. So we've already mentioned that we feel that these regular surveys are incredibly useful. We use them at Questback, and it's so helpful to get regular feedback that we know is being acted on a weekly basis. I know that I've had quite a lot of discussions with people who sort of think this is really not the time to be doing surveys of employees. And while a sort of long labour-intensive survey is certainly off the cards in the immediate term, we feel that actually getting feedback from employees during this time is absolutely critical. When we're getting feedback from employees, it obviously makes them feel listened to, it makes them feel valued, and it provides you with really useful information to improve your team, your company, as well as obviously improving the employee experience. So Luke's going to just tell us a bit more now about the weekly vibe surveys. They're extremely short and simple. They enable employees to make suggestions. They're really designed to raise suggestions that can be actioned at a team level. So things that we can do to improve the way that we work and improve our customer service as a team. So I'll hand back to Luke to tell you more.
Thanks very much, Kate. So yeah, as Kate said, this is actually part of QB, and when we relaunched QB 3 weeks ago to help organisations like yours with this situation, we didn't take the vibes out of it. So we thought, well, why don't we just keep this in? Because, you know, whilst launching these surveys is cool, and would be very useful, and you could do this, let's say, once now and then once in a month to see how things are going and see if you can get some kind of trend there. What a lot of our customers really like is this ability to get a very quick sort of pulse from the organization every single week. Oh, and by the way, thank you to the many people who said they can actually hear, which is very reassuring. Thank you. So at this stage, just to almost illustrate this, we're just going to launch our third and final quick poll for today, which is a very simple, how was your week? So how's your week been so far? And you've got 5 options. You can choose fabulous, good, okay, bad, and terrible. And Kate, I think we're used to this now. Where do you think this one's going to land?
Yeah, I'm an optimist. I'm going to say good.
Okay, excellent. I'm kind of an optimist, but I'm also, yeah, maybe it's just been one of those weeks for me. I think quite a lot of people are going to say it's okay. So I think we could always do things, but we're getting a really good response rate for this, by the way. So thank you so much to everyone who's participating. It does make these webinars a lot more fun to present, so thank you. We've got just 80%, maybe a couple more. Anyone who just wants to quickly look at their screen and just give it a quick tap in the right area. Let's see, maybe 1 or 2. I'll leave it for 2 more seconds. That'll do. We'll leave it there. So let's close the poll now. Thank you to that last person who got that in there just at the end. So overwhelmingly good, 50% good, 7% fabulous, 36% said it was okay, 7% are in our bottom 2 boxes there, bad and terrible. I am sorry if you've had a terrible or a bad week, and I'm kind of hoping that this webinar isn't contributing to making it worse. So fingers crossed, we're trying to make things better. So let's go back to the presentation. So let's explain quickly what these weekly vibes or weekly check-ins are. You get these as part of QB. I'll show you in a moment what they look like actually in the software when you look at the results. But in essence, everybody who registers for QB, so you won't be sent this if you've just logged in yourself to QB and then sent a survey out to everybody like we showed in the demo a moment ago. So at that point, the only person who's going to be sent a vibe is you. It's only for people who actually register for QB, and you can invite as many people as you want to the organization. Since we relaunched 3 weeks ago, actually, you know, some companies have invited almost their entire company to this. So we've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people responding to these vibes every week. Every single Friday, those people who have registered will get an email. It will just say, how was your week? Very similar to the question we just asked you. So terrible, bad, it was okay, good, and fabulous. And then the real sort of the real insights here are from the follow-on questions. So the first question is embedded in the email. So you can take part simply by tapping the email on your phone, and that's it. Just you can forget about the rest. Or you can carry on and say, okay, well, why did you choose good? And you can select the topics that actually contributed to your week being good. In this case, maybe my team and the progress we're making, maybe projects we're working on. And then following up on that, there's an open text question which just asks, well, how could we make things better? And the way this question is phrased is to try to look towards positive things, actions that you could take, those sorts of things. And this is actually where the real value of Vibes happens, because one thing is measuring every month or every 3 months or even every year for engagement. But actually the sorts of things that impact how good your week was are the sorts of things that are going to gradually chip away at how engaged you are and how well you're doing at work if they're not dealt with. So these sorts of things are really, really insightful. And finally, the last question here, I put a lot of energy into performing a job. This question is cyclical, so there are 3 different questions. Every week it will ask you one of them, and every 4th week those get averaged up into an engagement score for the organization. And I'm just going to show you exactly what that looks like in terms of the results. So if I go into, let's see, where are we? We're here. Okay. And actually, I need to just go into the other guy who is over here. There we are. Right. And I'm going to go into the weekly vibe, and it's here that you have your weekly vibe. It's just underneath the get feedback where those surveys were that we looked at earlier. And when you go into the weekly vibe, you'll see that it just populates with how your week was. So poor Clive Cussler's not having a great time. And this is the organization. This is a fake company that we made up for the purposes of our demos called Boogle. And also Clive is a member of Marketing Global, so we can see how his team have been doing. And he's also part of a team called Webinar Team, but actually there's only one active member in there, which is me. So there we can't see anything else there. There's some built-in anonymity. So if you get fewer than a certain number of responses, then things like the open text is hidden and things like the breakdown. But if I go into Boogle, if I go into my entire company here, I can see the breakdown of responses. I can see all of the open text. So here we go. I can see some text from a couple of weeks ago. I think the new comms for the COVID-19 pandemic were really good, but can we get SMS updates? Here we've got COVID-19 concerns me a lot. Will I lose my job? Will my beloved friends lose theirs? And maybe actually we can do something about this. And everybody who takes part in the vibe will be able to see it. And we can go in here and we can see the sorts of things sort of before they become real problems. We can sort of see the issues that are affecting people and giving them a bad week. And this is really, really useful. So yes, this is GDPR compliant. So somebody mentioned that earlier. So the only people who take part in this are people who have actually signed up to QB. So it's not the people that you're just sending surveys to. The surveys are also GDPR compliant. The first question in the survey is the actual approval to actually take part in the survey. And that tells you what the data retention period is, et cetera, and all of the personal data is automatically deleted after the data retention period. But also anyone who takes part in the vibe goes through and accepts the data processing agreement as part of their sign up to QB. Also, if somebody wants to get removed from the system, then we will remove them and obviously get rid of all of the personal data attributed to them as well. So the full system is GDPR compliant and hosted from our data centers in Germany. Okay, so this is basically the vibe. The really cool thing about this is that also if we find something that's really actionable, so it'd be good to have some hand sanitizer in store, we can click the same as we could in the other results. We can add it to our action board. We can give that action to a particular responsible person, give it a due date, and they will get an email saying, hey, an action's been assigned to you, and we can start trying to make things better. Okay. The final thing actually to look at just before we go back into the end of the presentation is this ideation guide here down at the bottom. We are launching this in QB very, very soon. And I'll go back into my presentation and show that we have had a couple more questions. Oh, okay, so the person who asked the GDPR question is saying thanks, perfect, thank you. Glad I could answer your questions. If you do have any other questions about that, then just please get in touch and we'd be really happy to answer them. So this ideation guide, let me just go back to here And I will hand over to you, Kate, and you can start to talk us through this collaborative action planning.
Great, thanks, Luke. So yeah, I mean, this is the part that I really love for the whole QB approach, that we're not just asking people for feedback and they never hear anything more. It's very transparent that everybody is seeing the feedback and everyone has the opportunity to then take part in moving suggestions into actions to improve the business. So this slide just gives you a quick sort of glimpse of the stages involved, where you've got different topics that people are talking about in a survey, and then you try and get more information to get a better understanding of a particular issue that you want to get more information on. So in this example, fostering collaboration. So you send out a very quick little email to colleagues to ask them to make suggestions of ways that we can better foster collaboration. Then this goes back to the manager or the person running the guide, and they can then move together, merge similar suggestions so that we've got a sort of manageable list of differentiated suggestions. And then there's an opportunity for the team to come back and vote on the best suggestion, so that there's a real buy-in and support for the actions that are then taken forward by the team. And obviously it takes the pressure away from a line manager. I think traditionally surveys have been something that managers will do to make things better. And this is very much about us all working together as a team to improve our working situation. And anybody within the team can become the owner and to drive this forward, but it's very much a team approach. And at the end of that action, there is then the opportunity to rate that action and to keep a track of that, so that we know what's worked well and what we need to focus on more as an effective team. So I really like this, because obviously there is no point in asking questions if there is no plan for using that feedback. And it's so important to be committed to making continuous improvements, otherwise you're going to miss a real opportunity to improve the work experience. So I think that's pretty much what we have. Sorry, Luke, do you want to add anything to that?
I was actually just going to add, for this particular one, we've had more questions in, so I'll get to those in a second. But for this particular one, for the ideation and sort of collaborative action planning guide in QB, I'm really looking forward to us launching this. This is something that we have a lot of customers already using, and it even before this situation, it added something really different to the action planning process. Because so many times you either get actions handed down from above and it's like, okay, let's do this, and they don't really relate to me and my team, and maybe we don't find them so useful or impactful. But also the other way that we've tended to do it is we all get together in a room and we say, okay, how can we make this better? And of course, because we're all human beings with different personalities, etc., there's always someone in the room who's louder than the others. There's always someone whose ideas don't get as much attention because of who they are. And this just cuts through all of that. It's a totally sort of confidential and well thought through process for trying to get the best ideas really to the very, very top of your action planning. And I think even now it's so much more important. I mean, we can't all get in a room anymore, and so being able to do this in this way is really, really powerful. We've had a question about languages. Are the tools available in German? So QB, as you've seen it, so the tool that we've launched is in English, but all of the surveys are available in English, German, French, Spanish, Italian, Norwegian, Swedish, and Finnish. There are a couple of surveys that aren't yet available in all those languages, but the key surveys for this initiative definitely are. If you do have to have the whole thing in German, then please do get in touch, because we have done that in the past and we can do that for you. So that's something that we can have a discussion about. But certainly the surveys that would go out to people, you can select the languages on those so that people can see it in their native language. And if there is a language that you need that isn't in the list I just gave you, then please also do get in touch. I mean, we want this to be as useful as possible to everybody, so we can work together to expand that. Right, okay. So we're getting to the, I don't know why, but it won't let me go forwards in the slides at the moment. Oh, there we go. So just a quick, there's two calls to action here, really. The first one is, please do use QB. It is you know, I've said it like a billion times, but it is, I don't want to sort of overdo this, but it is available now. You can sign up straight away and you can try it out. And what we're finding a lot of organizations are doing is trying it out in a small group and then speaking to us, and we're working with them to see how we can expand it more effectively within the organization at this time. So please do that. Please make use of it while we've completely unlocked it. And do get in touch with Kate and me if you have any more questions. We'd be, you know, very, very happy to talk to you and give any help we can give. And the other thing I would say is that this is a crazy time, and I know that we're all, you know, I don't want to get too soppy about it, but thank you so much for joining, and let's hope that we get through the other side of this. But I do think that the organizations that are really trying to connect with their employees and listen to them and work with them through this to improve the employee experience are going to be so much better for it. So anyway, Kate, any final words?
No, all good, thank you. I just wanted to reiterate my thanks for everybody for joining today, and to confirm that we will be sending out the slides and the recordings and answers to the questions to everybody within the next 24 hours. So look out for that.
Absolutely. Okay, well, thank you very much. Please do stay safe. We will send out the recordings to you all. And if you have any further questions, just get in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.